Tell me about your current role at Firaxis. What do you do these days?
I am officially the Director of Creative Development. Basically, that lets me do whatever I want to do. And what I enjoy doing is designing and making games. A lot of my time is spent kind of creating prototypes. We have a iterative design philosophy where when we have an idea, we try and get it playable as quickly as possible. So we have a whole suite of tools to get prototypes going. So maybe every month or two, we have a new prototype that we play with, and most of them just kind of go back into the trash heap, but every now and then one or two of them kind of catches on. So I do a lot of prototyping. Generally, I'm working on one of our new games in development, and I go to a lot of meetings and talk to people and do all that kind of stuff.
Firaxis is a strategy studio, obviously. Some people would say that strategy games are not contemporary. How do you approach trying to make strategy games, relevant to what some would call maybe a shooter market or like an action market that gaming has kind of moved to?
Well, we've always made games that we like to play. I think we try not to kind of categorize them as this genre or that genre. A lot of our games take elements of different genres and mix them together. 10% shooter, 20% action, 40% strategy, and 3% RPG or whatever. I think it's really the topic that kind of determines the approach we take to the game, not trying to fit it into a specific genre. That being said, we are strategy game players. We like strategy games. We think strategy is fun. We think making interesting decisions is part of what games are about. So our games tend to have a strong strategy component. Whether that's contemporary or not, it's really, those are games that we like. We're here now, so we're contemporary. So by definition, there's an element of contemporosity to them.
So modern, I guess, big budget or main console game development has sort of moved away from the sort of singular visionary model that governed a lot of video game development for years and years and years, certainly in the early part of your career. But Firaxis seems like it has kind of maintained a lot of that, a lot more of a focus on that than a lot of other studios do, particularly, like I said, for the larger games. How do you do that, and how do you keep your development sort of philosophies and methods, relevant to the way modern games are made?
Well, I think there are a couple of dimensions to that. Certainly, the technology continues to advance, and we need to keep pace with that. So in terms of our tools, third-party middleware, all that kind of stuff, we have a very strong technical side to what we do. But from the design point of view, we are designer-focused. Our games are about gameplay. They're first and foremost fun. They intend to be fun experiences, not technology showcases. And that means that the designer has a very important role, and we try to support the designer in every way we can. That whether it's sound, graphics, the writing, whatever, is there to kind of support the gameplay, not to essentially shine on its own and overshadow the gameplay. So I think it's kind of where your priorities are. A lot of time there's a tension between something that works well for the game, but maybe the artist would like something a little different, or we want cutaway cinematic cutaways for 30 seconds. That's very cool from an artistic point of view. From a gameplay point of view, it takes you out of the fantasy. So we're always faced with making decisions, as every designer is, but I think we tend to maybe come down a little more on the side of the gameplay and the design, as opposed to a larger team-oriented or focus group or designed by committee type of game. I think our designs tend to try and make gameplay and the design role one of the very significant parts of the game.
Do you think that there are any downsides to the way that you do that? Challenges that you face that other studios maybe don't because of that philosophy?
I think there's a risk in that. If the game that you like is not the game that I like, then we have a problem, because I'm making the game that I like, not the game that you like. So we have to hope that there's a significant audience out there for the games that we like to make. And up to now, that's been the case. We have a very vocal and avid fan community, and they've been a big part of our success. They've been there since Civ 1 and 2 and have contributed a lot of great ideas in content and scenarios and mods and all sorts of stuff. The community has really been our partner in the most of our games, and so far we've been able to make that connection. As long as we continue to do that, I think we have a successful formula.
Sure. When you look at Firaxis's discography, I guess, the studio's overall oeuvre, the games have almost, in recent years, feel like they're kind of moving not backwards, but toward a more elegant sort of design. If you look at, for instance, Civilization 5 versus Civilization 4, or Railroads versus Railroad Tycoon. What's your thought on that? I guess what's the driving philosophy behind that?
Well, in a lot of ways, we can make better games today than we could make 10, 15 years ago. So we hope that the overall quality of our games is constantly improving. We're also able to take advantage of things like interface conventions, the graphic richness and detail and that we can present to the player to make interfaces better, make games easier to play, and hopefully, as you say, elegant. So we want to take advantage of everything that we have to make the games easy to play. And we can also bring the games to life in a much richer way than we could before. That's slightly two-edged sword. I used to love to try and challenge the player's imagination, to show them a few pixels in 16 colors and try and convince them that they're ruling an empire that's, to stand the test of time. But I think today's player is not really willing to make that investment. So we're able to bring the worlds to life in 3D and show you everything that's going on, and you get to meet great leaders, and you get to fight aliens from outer space and all sorts of cool stuff right there on your screen. So we've been able to kind of ride that technology wave to add that new element to our games, which I think has brought new players in, because frankly, to play games of 10 or 15 years ago, you had to kind of suspend your disbelief and be willing to step into that world. Today we make it a lot easier with the graphic and the visuals that we can present to you. In a lot of ways, that's what's really changed about games. Game design hasn't changed as much as it might appear since the good old days, because a lot of things that were true there that made games fun still apply today.
Obviously, your career has been very long. You've made a ton of great games, but what still gets you excited about coming in and doing a new prototype? Like, what gets you just ready to go these days?
There's something about starting with a blank screen and a day or two or three later having something playable that's exciting, and there's a mystery to that process. There's a question to be answered. Is this idea fun, or is it just going to fall on its face? And the process of discovering that is endlessly interesting to me. When I come out of my shower in the morning, I have like 10 ideas I write down. This is what I got to work on today. These are the features I got to add. This is what I got to change. This is what doesn't work. And so I come in here with my list and I run through it, and just the process of thinking of things in the morning and seeing them come to life, by the afternoon is endlessly fascinating to me, and it kind of gets my creative juices going, and that's what I enjoy.
Sure. How do you stay engaged with something like Civ that's been so synonymous with Sid Meier for so long?
Well, Civ is such a rich topic that we have not exhausted it. I think that taking it to console, taking it different places has been fun. Emphasizing new aspects of it, the combat in Civ 5, etc. There's an incredible richness there. It's always the challenge with Civ is always what not to put in, not what to add to it. I guess we were very lucky to pick such a rich topic, but it really has been fresh now through Civ, five iterations plus Civ Rev, etc. So there's a lot to Civ, I guess, and we keep finding new things to make it interesting.
Is it ever hard to hand that off to somebody like Soren Johnson or John Schaefer, right, to a new lead to really put their own stamp on the project?
No, I think that's what it needs. I think that when I do a Civ game, that's everything I know about Civ at that moment in time. I haven't left something out for the next Civ version. So it's time for somebody else to come in with some fresh ideas, and then maybe an iteration or two later, I can come back, having thought of some new things and jump in there and do things. I think that Soren and John and the designers that have contributed have brought energy and life to a big part of the reason that Civ has really continued through these iterations, because they've each brought something fresh and new to the game, and it's been appreciated by the players and the fan community.
Sure. Civ 5 had got a really polarizing reaction, right? Because Civ 4 is so beloved. How do you look at that fan reaction at some of the fan sites, whether it's Peloton or Civ Fanatics or whatever? How do you take that and turn some of that maybe shrill commentary into something useful as a designer?
Well, it's fascinating because our fans feel they own Civilization, which is really gratifying. They're invested in the game and they care about it so much that they're willing to complain. I think, I I can make some lemonade out of those lemons. I think it's a sign in one way of how much they really, they're really interested in the game and are invested in the game. Change is essential. We have to keep moving the game forward. Listening to what our fans say is certainly important. We're going to continue to innovate, try new things. Some of them will work really well. Some of them you might not care for quite as much. Civ is a living, breathing entity. We appreciate all the commentary, positive and even negative. To us, it's an indication of how much people care about the game, and we'd rather have a lot of people commenting, some positive, some negative, than nobody commenting about it. And so we'll kind of look on the positive side of that energy.
Sure. Civ Rev was a very, I guess, different sort of a civilization. In a lot of ways, again, a much more elegant sort of a design for the consoles. Is going, I mean, and obviously XCOM is a console game and all that. Is console development, I guess, what's exciting about console development? Like, what's different about that for somebody like you who's traditionally, a PC-focused designer with a PC-focused company?
What was fascinating about Civ Rev to me, and that was a project I really enjoyed designing, was to try and distill the Civ experience into an evening. Civ can be a week-long experience, and that's great for a lot of people, but not everybody has that much time to invest in the game. The challenge was to pack all the fun and excitement of a Civ game into that amount of time. I enjoy that challenge, using the kind of graphic capabilities of the console and working with a different controller. All those things were kind of fun problems for me. But the sweep of history experience into kind of an evening, that was our target. I think we did a pretty good job of getting, when you look back over a Civ Rev game, you have that same turning points, those moments that really influenced where things went. But you kind of were able to pack them all into a shorter period of time.
The next wave that everybody talks about, mobile tablets, right? Obviously, strategy is a great fit for that. The kinds of games that Firaxis makes that are very gameplay first are a great fit for those kinds of devices and those kinds of experiences. How do you approach mobile development or tablet development that's any different than the way that you approach doing something like a Civ or an XCOM?
Essentially, I think we would not approach it differently. I think we would imagine what would be a game that we would like to play on this platform, and with this technology, and then make that game. I agree with you that things are changing in a way that favors smaller design teams, more gameplay-focused gaming, strategy gaming, that pace of gaming. So we're looking forward to the future. I think the future is going to be very interesting. Technology has always been one of the driving forces of the industry back since we got 16 colors instead of 4 colors. So and it continues to do that, and it continues to re-energize us in terms of what we can do and what the potential is. But yeah, when you look at mobile gaming and tablet gaming and the whole idea of interconnectedness and having a game with you at all times, I mean, those are all kind of new play paradigms that are just waiting to be explored by some new game ideas. So we're really looking forward to that.
Sure. Thank you so much for taking the time. We really appreciate it.
You're welcome. It's been my pleasure.
Awesome.